Okay, third attempt. So I was using this book and trying to learn to play banjo, and after about a year, I got frustrated. This didn't have songs I wanted to play in it. Certain ones like Flint Hill Special, Blue Ridge Cabin Home, Rocky Top, uh, Clinch Mountain Backstep. So I got this book after about a year. Uh, it was frustrating. This had a bunch of original songs by Peter Wernick and even one by Tony Trischka. This is written by Tony Trischka. It has on the cover the best bluegrass band ever with Cedric Rainwater, Lester Flatt, Bill Monroe, Earl Scruggs, and Chubby Wise. So it's not intended to be a how-to play the banjo book, though it does give some really watered down instructions on how to do that. And instead of showing me coming around the mountain with random licks, it's got an attempt to give you a break for using 9-pound hammer as the example. So here's the chords of 9-pound hammer with rolls. Here it is with complete licks. Here it is in single string Reno style. Here it is in melodic style. And then it goes into some of the history of banjo and famous people. And back in the 1800s, there was a classical banjo movement. It was sort of like classical guitar on banjo, and Frank Jenkins was one of the last of these and lived long enough to be recorded. Now it kind of persisted in a particular section of North Carolina. There's Home Sweet Home. Doc Walsh was another three-finger picker from the 30s. And Charlie Poole was quite a big star who three-finger picked because of a baseball injury. And Johnny Winstead was young enough in the 30s that he was still around when this book was written. And then Snuffy Jenkins. Snuffy Jenkins was the mentor to both Earl Scruggs and Don Reno, but when they analyze his style, it's clear that Earl Scruggs got a lot more from Snuffy Jenkins than is given credit to. So here's a couple of his songs. And we get to Earl Scruggs, and the one Earl Scruggs song they include is his version of Molly and Tin Brooks that he played with Bill Monroe. And I sort of learned to play that. And there's a section on Don Reno, and when you analyze his style, it owes less to Snuffy Jenkins than Earl Scruggs does. Kind of gives credence to his theory that he invented this style independently. His verse of Mama Don't Allow and When You and I Were Young, Maggie. And there's Ralph Stanley, who was inspired by Earl Scruggs, but didn't have any contact with him for several years, so until after he developed a three-finger style, it's more old-timey sounding than Earl Scruggs. Got a couple of his songs. And Sonny Osborne, he joined Bill Monroe's band when he was 16, and he's got two songs, Rocky Top and Reuben. Those are probably the two I would most like to learn. And I sort of learned to play them a little bit, but not very good, not very fast. Cumberland Gap. Here's Alan Shelton, and with Jim and Jesse. And some of his style has a couple of his songs, but it doesn't have Your Old Stand By, which is probably the one I'd most like to learn of his. Bobby Thompson and Bill Keith both invented melodic style. Bobby Thompson invented it first, but Bill Keith became famous for it in part because he was in Bill Monroe's band for a short time, around the time I was born. There's his versions of Morrison's Jig and Shenandoah Breakdown. Now, when I get to the future, and a lot of these guys Tony Trischka thought would be important in the future, I have not heard of outside this book. There's Butch Robbins and Larry McNeely and Pat Cloud. After that is a section of fiddle tunes, and there's a bunch of fiddle tunes here. All of these are in melodic style. So if you're into melodic, this might be a useful thing for you if you're able to somehow learn with tablature, which I was not. Okay, so then there's a section on classical banjo with a few tunes of that. Yankee Doodle, Beethoven Mandolin Sonata in C major. I can learn to play this slowly in a way that sounded okay to me. Paganini Violon and Caprice, Bach Invention. Then there's a bonus bluegrass section, and these three banjo players I've all heard of since then, including Bela Fleck there. So most of these are old-time bluegrass songs, and they're a pretty good selection here. Only a few of them are originals by people. Most of them are traditional. Like Saudi Daisy is written by Tony Trischka. Plastic Banana by David Nichern. Bela's Dog by Bela Fleck. Then there's a section on music theory. It encourages you to learn to play melodically all the scales, but it doesn't give you all of them, just some of them. And the section on chords was extremely useful to me. So this is another book that failed to teach me to learn to play banjo.